Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart, and today I'll be breaking down the 11-game NBA slates we have here on DraftKings for Wednesday night. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Hart. I make daily NBA and NFL slate breakdowns here on DraftKings, where I talk over my favorite spin-up plays, mid-range options, and value plays. So if you're new to the channel, hit that like button and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell. We're getting super close to 1,000 subscribers. So thank you guys for that. I do truly appreciate all of you for subscribing and watching my videos. Make sure to hit that like button, and now let's get into the slates breakdown. Before I get into the breakdown, just want to say follow me on Twitter at HartDFS. I'll answer any questions you guys have. Talk NBA, DFS, NFL DFS. Also have my free Patreon, which you can find in the YouTube description link down below, as well as my link tree right here, and I'll always pin it on my profile. I go over my a recap of the day before, the game totals and the spread, injury news to monitor. Then I go over my top pay-up options, why. Throw in their usage, all that good stuff. My thoughts on the slates, building blocks, value options, all that good stuff is free in my Patreon link down below and on my Twitter. And then a review of tonight's slate. I had, Darius Garland, Bam, and Tyler Hero were all fantastic. But unfortunately, I have Kevin Love, who I think he had 5 fancy points or 4.25. Got 3 fouls in the first quarter. Saw 2 more minutes the rest of the game. I mean, it's hard to come back from that. And then Jokic, he had like a 6 fantasy point first quarter. So I've kind of lost hope with being able to cash. Maybe I'll be able to limp over with Jokic if he goes off the rest of the game. What to see. Game is, I think, still midway through the second quarter. So I turned it off. I got just annoyed by how bad Kevin Love burned me and then Jokic was doing. So moving on to this big 11-game slate, we have the Clippers and Orlando as game 1. With the Clippers, the big news is Wall, Morris, Powell, and Luke Kennard are all out. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, they are coming off a game which both of them were limited, but both played, 28 minutes. If they're both going to see 28 minutes, I don't think, there's any, reason you should get to them. I guess technically one of them could go off in 30 minutes, but you obviously don't feel great about that. That's like a 1 out of 10 chance. Who knows the numbers on that, but yeah, if they're, obviously, for some reason, if there is no minutes limit, Kawhi Leonard looks fantastic. Paul George even looks good at that price tag. But yeah, let's just assume there's still no minutes limits. We'll have to get updates tomorrow. With that being said, don't really love the top 3. And then, going down to the bottom half of the team, Reggie Jackson would probably start alongside those top 3. Same thing with Terrence Mann. At their price tags, maybe Mann would be my favorite out of that starting 5. But coming off the bench, you'll have Batum and Covington see probably close to 25 minutes. I'd give the nod to Covington. He's a little bit better of a point per minute guy when it comes to rebounding, blocks, steals, hitting threes. He'd be my favorite play out of the 2, but they're both viable. We'll see maybe if one of them slides into the starting lineup. Orlando is pretty tall and big, so who knows how that go. Maybe they'll slide Moses Brown in there. He's a very solid point per minute guy, but he just doesn't play. But yeah, my only direction would probably be going to these kind of bottom tier guys. We'll have to see how the starting lineup comes out and if there's a minutes limit for those top guys. For Orlando, they're all kind of getting to that price tag where you're kind of eyeing all of them. Paolo's coming off a very solid game, a 50 bomb in which he only shot 4-16. He looks very solid at that price point. Bol looks solid, but, minutes haven't been great recently. Franz, 6K. That's pretty interesting. Kind of has a limited upside playing along all those guys, but, he can have that random game where he goes out for 45 fantasy points at 6K. That'd be huge. Mo Bamba, he has a good ceiling, but playing alongside all those guys, he's probably the last of the team I'd get to. But, they all look decent, their price tags. Cole Anthony coming off a game where he shot 0 of 9. He should see maybe close to 30 minutes in a competitive game. And then Markelle Fultz would probably be my favorite play. He saw 32. He's a very solid point per minute guy when it comes to kind of getting all those peripheral stats and scoring the ball. So at 5,200 would be my favorite. Terrence Ross is always there as a tournament option. Moving on to the Los Angeles Lakers and Toronto. For LA, Anthony Davis left tonight's game against the Cavaliers because of flu-like illness. So we'll see if he plays tomorrow. Maybe not. Let's just assume he's out for now. If he is, LeBron, I'd say there'd be a huge risk of him not playing in tomorrow as well. Coming off a back-to-back. They just played tonight. He played a good amount of minutes. So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. Let's just assume he's in for now. Anthony Davis is out. If that's the case, LeBron looks great at 10-4, but there is huge blowout risk going against, very solid defensive team in Toronto. You got to keep that in mind. Russ at his price looks great. Same with the rest of the starting five, which would probably be Lonnie, Schroeder, and Pat Bev. I mean, Toronto is pretty tall, so maybe they'll slide one of those guards to the bench and move a guy like, they'll start LeBron, Thomas Bryant, Schroeder, Pat Bev, and then Lonnie. Maybe they'll slide a guy like, Russ in the starting lineup, but they'll probably bring him off the bench. Maybe they'll bring like a Troy Brown in and slide one of those other guards to the bench just to be able to match up with the height of Toronto. We'll have to see with that, but yeah, I mean, the starting five looks great. The guys off the bench, potentially Reeves, Brown, even a guy like, Damian Jones, Juan Toscano Anderson, they could be in play. So we'll have to see with that injury news when it comes to, or back-to-back news when it comes to LeBron and AD for tomorrow, because it really changes up all the plays here. And yeah, we'll just get the starting lineup and kind of go from there. So stay tuned for that on Twitter tomorrow or my Patreon write-up. On Toronto side, obviously blowout risk. At their price tags, really no one stands out. Pascal's a solid spend-up option. Barnes, OG, Van Fleet. Prefer getting to Van Fleet. He's the best point per minute guy out of all of them, but he can't hit a shot right now. The minutes are great. It's just he can't shoot. So if you want to buy low on Van Fleet, don't mind that at his price tag. Rest of the team, Boucher does have the ability to nuke the slate, but not seeing the minutes. Gary Trent, 2-score independent. So not a lot of interest on this Raptors team right now, especially if, LeBron and AD miss. On to Atlanta and the Knicks. Trae Young is, playing at Madison Square Garden. So we know he has history there. They don't like him. He usually does pretty well there. So this could be a game where, coming off that OKC game, he was very popular and didn't really do the best. 41. His price tag jumped up by 500. Maybe a good amount of people will be off of him. He does have that ability to go for like 40, 50 real life points in this spot. So if you want to go to that risky pay up option, don't mind it. DeJounte Murray, at that price tag, he's been better recently, which you do like to see. 3 straight games of 20 or more points. So it looks like he's getting back into form. So at that price tag, don't mind him. Clint Capella, I still like him a decent amount. He's popular at last slates. Went off for another double-double. He's very foul prone, so there's always that risk he loses minutes because of foul trouble. But even at that price tag, I still think he's viable there. AJ Griffin, price hasn't moved. He played 30 minutes. He looks very solid. He's a decent point per minute guy. I mean, that's kind of the game. I wouldn't expect 15 shots. Maybe they're telling him to let loose from 3. But in 30 minutes, you could probably expect close to 8 to 10 shots. He's going to be decent at defense. So yeah, I do like him as a good, solid play there at 5,100. Bogdan coming off the bench, saw 22 minutes past a few games. I think he's still going to see around that same time, so I don't think he's viable yet. Culver saw 24 minutes. Don't think he need to go there. I would rather get to Jalen Johnson, seeing almost 30 minutes past 2 games. He's not going to go out there and score a ton, but he's very solid at getting rebounds, kind of doing a little bit of everything. So at 4,100, he makes for a good value play. And Okongwu, if, Capella gets foul trouble, Okongwu will, be out there. He's a very solid point per minute guy. Moving on to the New York Knicks, we have Randall, Brunson, Barrett. They all seem pretty cheap. Barrett or Randall's probably been the best of the group recently. Cooling off a little bit. I don't mind him at that price tag. Prefer getting to Barrett or Brunson. Brunson was very solid. Really cooled off the past 4 games, but before that, he's had almost like 4 straight games of 40 plus fantasy points, with a few of them almost being 50. So I do like a good amount here at 7,200. Barrett, I like him, but he's just been so bad this season. Just very up and down. He'll have games where he goes 6 to 22, but it's a very intriguing price tag at 6,100. I'll just say that. And then moving on to the rest of the team, Mitchell Robinson. I mean, if he's going to play 30 plus minutes to match up with Capella, or even around 30 minutes, he looks very, very, very good. 4,900. He's a very foul prone guy, kind of like Capella, but he has massive upside, double upside, really good at getting blocks. So yeah, I have a good amount of interest there. Probably my favorite play on the Knicks side. Quickly looks decent, 4,200. Don't mind taking a shot at him. He could have a huge game. Gets a little bit more minutes and blowouts, but he should see around 20-ish off the bench. Hopefully safer amount of 25. Grimes seeing about, he is starting, seeing about 20-ish minutes, closer to 25 over the past few. Yeah, I mean, he's viable, but you don't feel great about that. He hasn't been good. Hartenstein coming off the bench, playing about 15 minutes, kind of like a Okongwu play. And then Cam Reddish seeing about, 15 minutes if he's lucky. just you don't feel great in that. You kind of just feel like going to the top guys. I mean, D Rose is still in the rotation. He'll see maybe 15-ish minutes, but yeah, not a lot of interest in that. Charlotte and Brooklyn, we have Terry Rozier. We know we're getting from him. Minutes are there, shots are there. It just if he comes down hitting the shots, I mean, he's been very solid at rebounds, assists, everything else. It just comes down if he can hit shots. So at that price tag, still think he's definitely a solid play. Oubre, a little bit cheaper here. Does have some upside. Huge minutes on both of these guys. So I do like him a good amount here in a great spot against Brooklyn. PJ Washington, I mentioned him how it was a disgusting play, but I had a lot of interest in him. Went off for 42. It's very hard to trust him to do that in back-to-back games, but at that price tag in this matchup, he looks solid. Plumlee, don't love 5,700 price tag on him, but he does have some upside. McDaniels 4,900, just kind of there, really just kind of there. And then Theo and Richards will just kind of play the backup run. Don't think you need to get to them. Moving on to the Nets, we have KD at the top, 10-7. Price is finally coming down. He looks fantastic in this matchup. Same thing with Kyrie. Price is, really hasn't moved. He really hasn't flashed too high of upside yet, but the minutes are finally back to about 40 minutes a game, shooting about 20 times a game. So, yeah, I mean, it's without a doubt, there's going to be a Kyrie ceiling game very, very soon. So, I'm going to keep riding him until that happens. And maybe that doesn't happen. Who knows? But really like both of those guys at the top. Claxton is viable because Ben Simmons is still out. He has double-double upside. Played 38 minutes in the last game. So, he looks very solid. Those top three look great. Royce O'Neal, looks like a decent play. One of those guys, kind of like a Bruce Brown. They do a little bit of everything. TJ Warren, limited to around 20 minutes. Don't think he had to do it. Joe Harris has actually been decent the past 4 games. I don't know if I can trust it. I mean, if you want to, you can. But now that he's 4,500, he's not the best value. Seth Curry's, stock is kind of plummeted because of TJ Warren and Joe Harris doing better. So you can take that shot. Don't feel great about it. Moving on to Washington and Chicago. Looks like a great spot for Porzingis. That price tag is going to scare people away, but he's been fantastic the past 4 games. So yeah, going against a very solid matchup against Vooch. You don't mind running it with Porzingis. Same thing with Kuzma. The offense is going to flow through both of them with Brad Beal being out. I do think Monte Morris becomes very viable here at 5,100. Very solid price tag for him. He hasn't been great this year, but maybe should see a few more extra shots a game. Usually it was floating around like 6 shots a game, but now with Beal out, there are shots to go around. I'd expect maybe 20. I can see the stat line against Memphis as, same thing he'd go out tomorrow night and do against the Bulls. 10, 6, and 6, 32 fantasy points. 5,100, very solid. Denny, it does make him more viable. He should see closer to 25 minutes in the spot. He's been a solid point per game guy recently, so you could definitely fire him up. Goodwin, same thing with him. Don't mind getting into either of those guys. I guess I prefer maybe Goodwin over Monte Morris. Kispert, been okay off the bench. Will Barton, kind of always there, but yeah. A little bit of interest in this Washington team. For Chicago, DeRozan, Zach, Vooch. Zach's coming off probably the best game of his season so far. Great spot here going against Washington, so I think all 3 are viable. Prefer Vooch just because of the price tag. Going up against Porzingis defense, he should be able to do well there. So yeah, I think all 3 look very, very good. Rest of the team, Pat Williams, I do think he makes for a solid value play. He usually sees close to 30 minutes around that 25 to 30 minute mark. And yeah, he should go out there, get you 22 to 28, 29 fantasy points, maybe a little bit more if he's shooting the ball well, but 3,800, you can't argue with that. Io is just kind of there. Same thing with the rest of the team. Green's questionable, Crusoe's questionable. Maybe if they're both out, does raise the floor a little bit for Io, Dragic, and Kobe White, who is seeing about 15-ish minutes, but don't feel great about those guys right now. We'll have to see what happens with the injury news. On to OKC Memphis. SGA looks great. Giddey has upside, but he's playing alongside SGA. Minutes are questionable on Giddey. Lou Dort, just kind of there. And then the rest of the team, Jalen Williams makes for the best, kind of the safest value play in terms. JRE's there. His minutes have been safe the past few games, but when you're dealing with OKC, all these guys could get benched. Everyone besides SGA, there's a risk of them losing minutes. Kenrich is still out. Basley only saw 15 minutes last game, but I think Amori did well last game, or that was a few games ago. But yeah, I mean, Not a lot of interest in these guys. You can go to them. JRE's probably the safest. Poku has upside, but he's not playing minutes. Williams is the safest. It's pretty much just SGA for me. I don't like messing with OKC. It's just a huge headache. Memphis side, Josh should be back. Looks fantastic matchup for him. Same thing with Jaren Jackson Jr. I really, really like him at 7,100. Price tag's at that point where people are not going to be looking at him and be like, oh, he's too cheap. Let's play him. He's kind of been limited around 30 minutes, which you don't like seeing. Foul prone, but he could absolutely smash in this matchup. He's great at scoring, getting rebounds, and blocks. So really like him. With those guys back, don't have any interest in Brooks or Tyus Jones. Adams is always a tournament option, but really it's just, Jackson Jr. or Ja for me. Moving on to the Detroit and Pelicans game. Detroit's coming off a back-to-back. They just played tonight. Bogdan shot very well once again. I think he had like 3 points in the first half and then scored 27 in the second half. So he's riding the hot streak there when it comes to scoring. So I don't mind going to him at 6,600. He's going to be the safest option on his team. Ivy, I would argue, has a little bit more upside, even though he hasn't flashed it recently. Not sure how he played tonight. I don't think he played the best. So you can buy low on him. The price doesn't move, so it's not the best price point, but he's definitely there. Same thing with Killian Hayes. I think the second best guy in the team tonight was, Alec Burks at 5,000. I think he played closer to 25 minutes. We don't have that information yet. But yeah, I mean, right now, it's kind of the same thing I said from last night. Bogdan's going to be the safest one. Obviously, his ceiling's kind of capped when it comes to just being very score independent. Ivy is there, but he's been bad recently. Hayes is just kind of a dart throw. Either you're going to get, 30 minutes and 20 to 25 fantasy points, or 30 minutes and maybe 40 if he's having a really good game. Bagley and Stewart, I prefer getting to Stewart over Bagley just because his minutes are safer. So, he has double upside. He just doesn't shoot the ball a ton. Sadiq Bey's been coming off the bench, seeing about 20 to 25. Saw 30 minutes last game. I mean, he's just there. He does have huge upside. It's just he hasn't been consistent enough. Burks, once again, if we're going to see 25 minutes out of him, really like him. But if not, he's just more of a risky play. And then Duran getting the backup minutes. No real interest in him as of right now. On to the Pelicans side. Zion, 9,600. I think it makes for an okay spend up. I really just prefer, with Brandon Ingram getting out, going to CJ, who's coming off a bad game. We know he has huge upside. I mean, 2 straight games of shooting 2 of 11, 3 of 11. 5 points, 7 points. I mean, we know that's not CJ. He's one of the best shooting guards in the league. So yeah, I like buying low in CJ. I mean, he did start off this season shooting the ball very badly. But, I mean, 16, 19 fantasy points, 7,300. A little too low for CJ there, especially in this matchup. J-Val looks very solid here. Minutes were not great against Denver. Game did blow out, so that hurt. But we saw against the Spurs, the game which, did blow out. He played 26 minutes. Was very, very solid. So, he could definitely go off at this price tag in a small amount of minutes. So it's a great matchup for him. Trey Murphy, just a little too pricey for me at 6,000. He's been very solid. Alvarado coming off his career game, 38 fantasy points. Don't need to chase that at 4,800. Herb Jones would maybe be my favorite value play. But I mean, all these guys are really priced up because of that, back-to-back blowouts. So I don't think there's any interest besides a guy like Larry Nance, who does have huge upside if J-Val gets in foul trouble, or if, Detroit's pretty small. So if, they play small and, the Falcons want to play small, they'll go to Larry Nance, who could see 25 to 30 minutes. I haven't seen that recently, but yeah, they could go to him. So always keep that in mind. Najee is kind of there coming off the bench, 20-ish minutes. But yeah, it's really just CJ for me. That's it. Sacramento and Milwaukee. Sabonis, Fox. I do like Fox a good amount here at 8,600. Not the best matchup going against Drew Holiday. He's really cooled down recently too in terms of fantasy output. So just kind of a coin flip for me. Sabonis, he has massive upside. He's just not shooting the ball a ton, which is very frustrating because it limits his upside. So they're kind of there. Malik Monk's priced up to a point now where it's not great. Don't feel great playing him at 5,600 because the minutes are still not secure with him. Herder is probably the best of this bunch below the top 2 guys just because minutes are pretty safe. He's a very, very good 3-point shooter. He's decent at peripherals. So yeah, I think he'd be my favorite play besides, I guess, Keegan Murray. You can throw him in there as well. I think he makes for a very solid value play there. Minutes are pretty solid on him. Decent fantasy point per minute guy. So I do like him a good amount. That's probably it on Sacramento. Milwaukee. Giannis looks great. We'll have to see if we can get up to him. Drew Holiday, Middleton. I prefer getting to Middleton. If he's going to be limited to 30 minutes still, don't think you need to do it. But let's say he has minutes limit off. Do really like him. Holiday still has some upside at 7,700. Excuse me. The rest of the team, I guess Brooke Lopez would be my favorite play if you're not going to go to one of the top three. But the rest of the team is just kind of there. Grayson is Grayson. Pat Connaughton saw 22 minutes. Probably the best value play, but yeah. Not a lot of interest in Milwaukee unless we get some news that gets us to them. On to Indiana and Minnesota. We have Halliburton and Turner, who are both questionable. Obviously, this changes everything. Halliburton missed the past two due to injury. So we'll have to see if he plays, and we'll see if Miles Turner plays. Besides that, let's say Halliburton's still out. The rest of the team's good. Obviously, you're going to want to get back to a guy like Nembhard and Buddy Hield because they're both really way too cheap. Even a guy like Miles Turner, they're all three of them are way too cheap. They'll lead the team in usage. But let's say everyone's back. If everyone's back, I do like Halliburton a good amount at 9,300. Turner looks very solid, even Buddy Hield. So I prefer the top three. It kind of just shifts to the top three instead of, Turner, Hield, and Nembhard. But yeah, Nembhard's coming off a near triple-double. He's been great the past two games starting, so maybe he's earned a little bit extra playing time and usage, but we'll have to see. Playing alongside Halliburton, we know he has the ball the whole time, so it really just depends upon that news. Otherwise, no real interest in any of these guys. Maybe a TJ McConnell, but he's only going to see about 15 to 20 minutes. So yeah, it's really, really just dependent on Halliburton and Turner. So we'll have to wait for that news. I'm sorry. Minnesota, Towns is still out. We know Anthony Edwards is going to lead the team. We know he has huge upside, 43, 56, 46. He really hasn't shot the ball great this season and had one of those, really well shooting games going off for like 35, 40 real life points and like 70 fantasy points. I mean, he has that upside, but at that price tag, don't love it. Gobert's come up. He's been terrible the past week, so you can buy low on him. D'Lo still would be the safest of the bunch. He's just going to get more usage and shots with a guy like Cat out. They're going to have to rely on him more, so he'd be the safest. But I'd rather just get to the value guys like a Kyle Anderson. He switched to coming off the bench, 31 minutes still. McDaniels, he's going to start. He only played 18, so right now they're looking like they're going to Anderson over McDaniels. Noel, they're going to look to him to score off the bench, play 23 minutes, still got you 28 fantasy points, 21 real life points, pretty score independent. So definitely has a little bit lower ceiling if he's only going to see like 25-ish minutes. But yeah, still really prefer all three of them. Naz Reid had a monster game because Gobert got in foul trouble or fouled out or got injured. One of those, and that's why Naz Reid did great. I mean, he's always worth a shot if you want to. Should see 15 minutes in a normal type game. But yeah, if Gobert gets in foul trouble, Naz Reid is going to be the main guy off the bench to kind of fill in that spot. And then McLaughlin is back. He played 24 minutes. You can definitely go to him over a guy like Noel, kind of that for that scoring guard, point guard spot off the bench. 3,500, don't mind that. He's going to be, we'll see if he picks up ownership. But yeah, I think that could be a sneaky play depending on the ownership. Golden State, the other team besides the Clippers that has a bunch of guys out. Steph, Wiggins, Draymond all out. We'll have to see if Clay plays. I don't know why you'd sit at Steph, Wiggins, and Draymond and then have Clay play, but Poole looks great at 6,500. Lock of the day there. Clay, I just feel if he plays, you would hope he plays the whole game. He's coming off of two very solid games. Maybe they're going to keep him out there just to get more in the rhythm for the season, but I think there's a risk he only plays like a half, and then he sits and rests. So just keep that in mind. Looney should see 15 to 20 minutes, maybe a little bit more. But yeah, then a ton of interest in the guys like DiVincenzo, Kuminga, Lamb, Moody, all those kind of the secondary pieces. I think they look like the best value on the slates, the board. Prefer getting to, obviously, Poole. And then a guy like, I'd say DiVincenzo would kind of be that secondary guy. Kuminga and Lamb and Moody do have huge upside. So far this season, it seems like Moody's kind of been the last of the bunch in terms of like usage, which is surprising because he was the best of, that value secondary group last season. So it'll be interesting to see, I don't mind chasing him there. Ty Jerome should see minutes, 3,000. He's a decent point per minute guy. Wiseman is back, 3,000 for him. He should slide into the starting position, play about 25 minutes, if not more. So I think, it wouldn't be bad to play like 3 to 4, if not more, Golden State guys on this slate and just plug in like 2 or 3 absolute stars and pay up. So it's looking like it's going to be one of those slates, so keep that in mind. On the other side, blowout risk, with the Golden State resting all the guys. So Markkanen and Clarkson, they look solid. Same thing with Olynyk, Sexton. They're all seeing a ton of minutes. Mike Conley is back. If he is, it does eat into a little bit of, a guy like Sexton's minutes. Maybe Sexton doesn't start. We'll have to keep an eye on that. I think Beasley would be my favorite play. Hasn't been great the past week, but he has huge upside. That's really it. On to the last game. We have Tatum, Brown. Prefer getting to Brown, even though Tatum's probably the safer option, even at 2,000 more. He has massive upside. Same thing with Brown, but they're both kind of there. Kind of with how the slate's shaping up. Don't think there's a need to get to a guy like Brown. Rather pay up for that safer floor and a guy like Tatum in the ceiling. Smart, Horford. I guess Horford looks solid there. Decent point per minute guy. He was on a solid stretch. Past few games, he's been in and out with injuries and rest. So 5,200, don't mind him there against a tough defense in Phoenix. Brogdon is probable, so that takes guys like Derek White out of question. Grant Williams is kind of there, so not a lot of interest in this Boston team. We know everything kind of goes through the main 2 guys. And then Phoenix, Paul is questionable. Booker, solid spin-up option there. Coming off of a cool down here after huge games. Don't mind buying low on him, 10,000. Aiden, same thing. He's been a little bit more consistent the past few games, the past 2 games compared to Booker. But yeah, I think they both look very solid, even in this matchup. If Chris Paul's back, no real interest in this team besides maybe Chris Paul if he's not on the minutes limit. But yeah, Miles Bridges is there, Payne's there, Craig is questionable. Lee, Sarge, Shamet, they're all going to kind of share a little bit of minutes off the bench. Lee is the best value option, but the rest of them kind of dart throws. And yeah, the slate is going to shape up to be, as I mentioned, the Clippers, Golden State Warriors guys, and then kind of just like what studs you want to put in alongside them. I mean, you can always do like a more of like a value, or not value, but more of like a mid-tier approach and, balanced approach, I'm trying to say, for this slate tomorrow. But it's just looking like you want to stuff in the Clippers guys, most likely the Warriors guys because they're a lot cheaper. And then just play like 1, 2, 3 if you can fit in of the top guys on the slates. Like, let's get Golden State off. Like a Giannis, like a Tatum, Durant, Ja, LeBron, SGA, Trae Young. There's a ton of pay-up options. I'll break it down in my slate write-up on my free Patreon tomorrow of the options I'm going to go to and try to get different from the field depending on all that value. So yeah, if you guys like the video, like the breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.